Awesome. So yeah, super excited to be here. So I just wanted to do a quick presentation before we get started, so you know exactly like who we are, who's talking to you, and then we can take it from there. Can everyone see my screen? You should be able to see Co.Lab, you belong in tech, join Co.Lab.io. Um, so a little bit about who we are. So we're putting on this event with Flynanced. So shout out to Flynanced and Cinneah for making this happen. We run experiential learning programs to give people the confidence and the skills to be able to succeed in the industry. Since 2020, we have trained over 1,500 tech professionals in over 60 different countries. We've run a total of over 45 cohorts with a 92% program completion rate and an 88% customer satisfaction score. We have alumni at top tech companies in the world and also fast-growing startups, and we're here to, continue to educate the public about different topics. And today we're going to be talking about how to build a product mindset to help you advance your career. Couple housekeeping rules before we get started. Again, feel free to drop your intro or just like hello in the LinkedIn thread that I just like posted down below. So feel free to just like say hello, connect with each other because you never know who you might meet. Fun fact, when we were running some of these events back in 2021, someone connected with somebody else who was able to refer them for a job that they got later on. So you never know who you're going to meet. And this is a perfect place. When people say, I don't know how to build my network, I don't know where to start, you're in a room with a lot of like-minded people, so feel free to connect with one another. If you have questions for myself, Cinneah, and Pallavi, feel free to toss it in the chat. I will sort of like compile some of those questions and then answer and ask them towards the end. Again, engage with other people. So if you even have the answer to questions people are asking, feel free to just answer it, and we can also chime on that. So because everyone has something to learn, everyone has something to teach. We're a big believer in that. And again, if you are comfortable, feel free to keep your cameras on so that we were all engaged. And that's all I have for you today. And now I wanted to pass it on to our amazing speakers to be able to introduce themselves. So I'll start with you, Cinneah. Would you like to just give like a quick introduction, and I'll move over to you, Pallavi, and then we'll start the Q&A.
Yeah, hey everyone, this is Cinneah. I am the founder of Flynanced, as many of you know. And before starting in Flynanced, I worked full-time as a product manager in payments. So I started off working as a senior product analyst at American Express, then pivoted into product development, product enablement, and other product manager roles across the payments landscape. So I know many of you are here because you're part of my amazing community and want to learn more about product management opportunities. So that's why I'm super excited to be here with Co.Lab because they are really one of my favorite career accelerators for folks who are looking to develop their product management skills and grow that portfolio to be seen by recruiters. So definitely excited for this conversation and for all of you to be here. Thanks for joining.
Awesome. Thank you. That's such a wonderful introduction. Now over to you, Pallavi. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Yes, for sure. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for taking the time to join. I'm excited for this conversation and also to learn a lot from Cinneah as well. I am currently back in school doing an MBA and MA in education at Stanford, but previously I was working in product management. I started my career working in product at Microsoft, helping build a more delightful collaboration experience in Microsoft Excel, and later transitioned to Duolingo, where I was the sole product manager on the Duolingo English test, building out that test and really making English proficiency testing more accessible for our learners. I'm really excited to be here today. Sefunmi and I have known each other for a while, and it's been such a pleasure to watch the lives he's impacted through Co.Lab. So really excited for this conversation and to hear from all of you as well.
Again, thank you so, so much. Again, as you can see, part of building a network is so important that, we remain connected so we can actually bring events like this to you. And again, we have a wealth of knowledge as it relates to like products from Duolingo, Microsoft, payments, American Express, and whatnot. So super excited about this conversation. And even to get started, so we're talking about how to advance your career by building a product mindset. I really wanted to start by defining what is a product mindset. Because I think a lot of folks might be a bit confused around like, what is a product mindset? Do I have to be a product manager to build a product mindset? Like, where do I even start from? So I think the first thing that I wanted to say is like, you do not have to be a product manager to build a product mindset. And let me even start by defining what product is. So product is anything of value. So your life has value, your careers have value, your relationships have value. And with anything that has value, you need to take care of it. You have to be understanding of like what are their needs and how do you nurture those things towards a particular goal. And that's what the essence of having a product mindset is. So it's all about how you can figure out those user needs and how you can understand how to solve problems, not just even just solve problems, but identify problems. So it's all about self-awareness. So in this context, we'll be talking about how can you build self-awareness around your career and how can you identify problems that you might have in your career, and using that product mindset, you can use that to advance your careers by knowing how you can iterate, how you can improve it, how you can use like the combination of creativity, empathy, problem solving, and just like the desire for just continuous growth. And I think the reason why you all are here dedicating your time to be able to listen to this event is because you have somewhat of a growth mindset that you want to try to, get whatever knowledge that you can to be able to move your careers forward. And, shout out to Cinneah for creating a platform for folks to be able to continually just like better themselves. So I wanted to just start by saying, look, even if you're in sales, customer support, and whatever career, you can use a product mindset to be able to move yourself forward. So it's not by no means you have to be in tech or you have to be in product. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So I just wanted to start by saying that. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat. So now let's get into our speakers. I'll start with you, Pallavi. Why is it important to have a product mindset based off of even what I've just already said?
I was going to say, I think you really started answering that question because, as you mentioned, having a product mindset is really around things that have value. And there's so much of that in your life, even if you're not working in product, whether that's kind of treating yourself as a product, your relationships, your career decision making, even outside of product. I think so much of it kind of requires that mindset of understanding and having deep empathy for who the users are. And often case that can be yourself or the people in your relationships. Having this idea of being able to experiment and test things out to figure out the right path for you. And then really ultimately, to me, a big part of the product mindset is creating something that's valuable for the user. And so to your point, all of these things are things that don't just apply when you're a product manager formally working on a product in a company, but more so as you're thinking about the way that you're building out your career or building out your relationships, which are so integral to your life. So I think it's super valuable, and I'm really excited in the next little bit to dig into how you can apply that mindset, particularly in your career, regardless of the function you're working in.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, and thanks for kind of like building up of like what I said, and even to you, Cindy, I wanted to just ask, like, do you even need any experience to build like a product mindset? Because now we talked about value, like your life has value, your relationship has value. So I think there's the notion of like, hey, you need experience, or you need to get experience somehow to be able to even build a product mindset. Like, what are your thoughts around that? Or due to our Zoom security
There we go.
reasons, we make sure that no one can unmute us. You probably noticed that. But yeah,
No
go ahead.
worries. I love this question. I love where the conversation is going. So I don't think that you need to have any formal experience, quote unquote, to develop a product mindset. At the heart of what we're talking about right now is establishing value by understanding what your customers or users are asking for, right? So even if you are an intern, even if you are entry level, even if you are just someone who is seeing problems that exist in your community, in your church, in your religious center, wherever those problems exist, I think starting to identify, well, what are these problems? And then what are people asking for? But then also, what are people's actions telling me that they value? Is how you start to develop a product mindset, right? If I'm going to create a solution that's going to drive value, is going to solve these problems, I want to make sure that it really reflects what my users, right? And users could mean customers, users could just mean impacted people think and do. So I don't think that you have to have experience. And I would really challenge everyone, no matter what role you're in, whether you're in marketing, sales, customer service, design, engineering, or even roles that you might feel, well, I don't really know how I could take what I do now and convert that to product. I want you to start thinking about, even in your day-to-day responsibilities, how can you get a better sense of what your customers think, what they say, what are their reactions to the products and solutions that your employer sells? A great way to be able to do that is maybe shadowing customer service, right? If there are people that you could listen in on, hey, do we get calls from our customers? Can I listen in on what do customers think, right? Maybe you're on a team that does surveys or does user research. or interviews. Those can be other ways that you can learn what customers think. And you don't have to be in a sales or marketing or research role to be able to get that kind of access. But I want to challenge everyone to start thinking about those things, because I will just say, as someone who has read a lot of resumes from amazing people across this community, I know that many of us deeply care about doing good work and doing impactful work. And sometimes it's difficult for us to be even able to articulate that when we haven't taken a step back and thought about, well, how does my work really impact the customer? How does my work really impact how our company derives value and drives value? So the more that we can start to challenge ourselves to ask, okay, what is my role in this overall process, in this overall system? And like, how is my role helping to solve problems at the company, is how we can start to develop a product mindset, and also just show the value that we are bringing to the company in our role.
Nice. I absolutely love that. One thing that you mentioned that I wanted to sort of like chime on a little bit is the function of caring. You mentioned like a lot of us care about the things that we do, and we care about our customers, we care about our relationships, we care about ourselves. And I think that that is a strong foundation of how you can start to build a product mindset around. If you care so much about something, you want to solve problems for them. And we solve problems for our loved ones and people who have tell us about their problems, because some friends tell us about their problems and they want to rant to us, but sometimes we provide solutions to them, and that's actually thinking about you building that product mindset. And a follow-up question to you, Cinneah, around like caring so much, like how do you could you just share examples of like how you've helped how having a product mindset has actually helped you start up this community and even just help run your business in general?
Yeah, I think the most perfect example is just to, kind of illustrate that when I started Flynanced, I had no intention on starting a business. I was really trying to build community, right? So I think that the pain points that I was feeling was, where are other people that care about money and are trying to navigate money, are trying to navigate debt payoff, but also who want to travel? Like, that is where Flynanced started. Even this logo that I have on my background is like one of my first logos, where I just cared about building community with other people that wanted to get closer to financial freedom. So that's really where I started. That was like the thesis that I was trying to solve for. That was the content that I was putting out. But in terms of starting a business, I really didn't know, like, what do people want to pay me for, right? That was something that I really had to better understand. And how I was able to start, like, even launching my very first product, was listening to what people were telling me that they valued my expertise in, right? So whether that looked like I would put out, a post and maybe it would go viral, or I would start a conversation through like an Instagram post that would elicit a lot of comments of people asking, well, how do I do this? Can you explain more? Can you really give us detailed examples, right? That was the foundation of me seeing, oh, wow, I have expertise that I can package and then sell to other people. I know that we all are bombarded at this point with so many people talking about affiliate marketing and create digital products, but it's a lot harder, right? When you don't really know, well, what expertise do I really have that people would be willing to pay for? For me, it was testing out these theories, testing out that content by way of building this community. And then at every step, I've continued to evolve and iterate based on feedback from people in this community. So if you get my emails, you've seen that I've done all types of surveys, I've done focus groups, I poll a lot, because I want to make sure that as I continue to build new products and build new solutions to support this community, that they're in line with what people really want and where they will derive the most value. And that evolves and ebbs and changes.
Nice. I'm starting to see a trend here. So we started with like caring, and then we moved to like listening. And then from listening, we also then moved to like iterating and testing. And before we even start solving their problems. So now for folks in the audience, like just like keep track of some of those things. And these are skills that we already have. Like these aren't, and but don't, you can also grow in these skills. Like it's not like, you're just born with it and you're born with a set number of caring or your ability to like listen. The more you grow in your career, you can actually like pay attention for what is the right things to listen for. But I'm loving the sound of that. So now over to you, Pallavi. Like, you've had an amazing career, like, Microsoft, Duolingo, now you're in Stanford, GSB doing like a master's and an MBA. So could you just share examples of how has having a product mindset help you just transform your career trajectory?
Yeah, and I think it's really going to build off of what you and Cinneah were just talking about around understanding your user and then experimenting. The quick piece of context before even starting at Microsoft was the undergraduate institution I went to, you did 6 4-month-long internships. So I've pivoted and tried out a bunch of other roles, even for a shorter period of time, before even getting to a point where I figured, hey, product management's a good fit. As I think about a product mindset, there's 3 components. There's the keeping user center, iterating and running experiments, and then really focusing on value creation, not just checking a box or launching a feature, but is it really solving the problem that you set out to? And I think those are 3 things that you can really apply to your career. So to talk a bit about how I've done that, starting first with the user center, every time I've tried to make some sort of career pivot, I've started by asking myself what it is I want. What is the problem that I'm trying to solve? In the context of my career, that's often looked like, what are the skills that I want to gain? Why do I want to gain those skills? Like, why do I think they're going to be important for me 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line? What hypothesis do I really have around what I want to do with my career? Once I kind of have figured that out and I've started thinking about what are the opportunities that could make sense for that, then I want to start experimenting. So one thing that I think people often do is they have a hypothesis of, hey, I think I want to be a product manager, and then they go kind of full head first into getting that full-time role, as opposed to really testing it out and understanding, is that a role that I'm going to enjoy? Is that something that is going to meet the requirements and the interests and the things that I want to learn? And so what I've often tried to do, and obviously was a lot easier when we were in the world of internships, was let me go and try it out for a little bit. But even now, when you're working in a current role, there's ways for you to get some of that. So back when I was in product, let's say I was interested in maybe more strategic decision making, I would try to find ways to maybe get involved with the biz ops team and projects that had more of a strategic lens. So yes, I don't need to fully go and do a big job pivot, but I'm able to start testing whether those characteristics of the role are a good fit for me. And then the last thing is really that value delivery piece. So again, it's not just about, hey, did I get that role? Did I get that internship? Did I get that project? But when I'm actually in that role or doing that project, am I learning the things that I wanted to be learning? And am I able to validate or deny the hypothesis that I came in with? And so, to give a couple of specific examples along those points, when it came to being user-centered, that pivot from Microsoft to Duolingo was very much, hey, I think I want to do something in education full-time. Well, at the side, outside of my full-time product role at Microsoft, I was working on starting an education nonprofit. And that was sort of my way of testing it out and seeing, hey, this is a space that I really like, before fully making that commitment into, let me go and search for a job that merges education and technology. In terms of experimenting, prior to getting my MBA or starting at Stanford, before I came here, I actually did an internship in venture capital. And that was really built from this hypothesis of, hey, I think I want to start a company. That's really what I think I want to focus on when I'm in school. Big part of starting a company is going to be fundraising. I have no idea how fundraising works. Is there a way that I can go and see and learn a little bit about that? And getting to do that for 3 months was a good way to test that out without committing to a career in this industry that I knew nothing about. And as I think about value delivery, every moment of that internship, as soon as I got there, I said, okay, what are the things that I really want to learn to understand? Do I like fundraising? How would I feel about being a founder? What is that experience going to be like? And I kind of came in with this list of like, these are the tactical skills that I want to learn in these 3 months that I have. How can I actually leverage this experience to learn that? So it wasn't just, oh, I got the role. Okay, I checked some sort of box, but more so, am I really deriving value that is going to inform the problem or the hypothesis that I set out with? And so in that way, I think there's just so many opportunities to really understand what it is, what problems you're solving for yourself. How can you run experiments or lightweight ways to inform those hypotheses? And then how do you make sure that you're actually really getting value out of the experiences that you're testing out for yourself?
Amazing. That's such a great response. And I love the emphasis you put on experimentation. And I think this is why this talk is around the mindset, because it's not, and I think even myself personally, I'm going away from trying to say something that is definitive, that like, oh, be a product manager, become a product, because it seems like you succeeded once you've just gotten the job. And it goes beyond that. It's life and your career is an iterative process. Like even after you become a product manager, you might be in payments now and then you want to switch into education or you want to switch into infrastructure, or you want to do something more design focused. And you're gonna have to like build a product mindset around that to be able to figure out if number one, that's the way to go. And if you like it, and even if you get it, like how can you succeed at that? So I'm loving the notion of the constant experimentation and the notion of like, I've gotten to this goal, great, what's next? And how can you use that to sort of like level up? So we have folks from different backgrounds, like different diverse backgrounds. So how do you think professionals in different industries, again, you've been in like education, I'll say like Microsoft Excel is productivity. So I'll say productivity, education. You mentioned being in the venture capital space. How can professionals from different diverse backgrounds and different like industries apply that concept of product mindset in their specific career paths? I know we've talked about experimentation, caring, testing, iterating, and also problem solving. But do you have any specific examples that people can like, say you're working at a nonprofit or you're not yet in a product or a tech role, how can they leverage that product mindset and the things that they're doing right now today?
Yeah. I think before you even get to the career point, I think there's so many day-to-day moments where you can be leveraging that mindset. And I think that's actually probably the best place to start. Because I think, once you start having hypotheses about what you might want to do with your career, there might be more formal ways to test that. But I think getting into that experimentation mindset just to learn day-to-day skills is really important. So maybe to give a concrete example of that, one of the things I've been involved with on campus is this coaching program where I'm a leadership coach to a few first years and a kind of a cohort of first year students. And one of the things I started doing through that program and through these weekly journals that I had to do was very intentional tests of, okay, when I show up with my cohort this week, this is how I'm going to try to do an introduction. Or, okay, I'm going to try to be more assertive in these ways. Or I'm going to be really mindful of, catching emotions that come up for me when I'm coaching the folks that I'm working with. And it would be very intentional of going in with like, this is the thing that I'm going to test this week. And at the end of the week, I'm going to reflect and see how that feels. Similarly, I was in a class called Paths to Power that's very much about different styles of leadership and acquiring power and confidence. And every week I would try to test a new thing of this week, I'm not going to use the words I think. Like I'm just going to remove that from my vocabulary and I'm going to go in and sound more confident. And I would run that for a week and then at the end say, how did that feel for me? What difference did that have on my life and in my interactions? And is that something that I want to stick with? And so before you even get to career, I think that really is a way of getting into this experimentation mindset of testing out different habits or behaviors that can help you regardless of what career you're in. So I think that's like one place to start. I think then when you're thinking about it more from a career perspective, it does go back to if you're thinking about making a transition, or if you're maybe feeling like there might be a role you're more fulfilled in, really trying to get to the core of like, what is it that you really want? So I think often people will say like, I want to be a product manager. And then I ask, well, why do you want to be a product manager? And like, what part of it do you think is exciting? Or, XYZ, whatever role it is. And trying to get to the core of, is it you really want to be interacting with customers? Is it that, you really like working, cross-functionally, but trying to get to the core of, for whatever role that you're interested in, what are the specifics of it that you think are going to be fulfilling for you? And then trying to have a broader mindset of how can you potentially meet those needs without just anchoring on a certain role that you might think that you want. Because I often think there's a lot of different opportunities and the opportunity set is much broader than we think to actually gain experiences that can help us fulfill the things that we're looking for. So I think that's another thing that I would encourage.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And just even starting from little things. I know, Cinneah, you also mentioned like if you're at church or if you volunteer, like you could also build a product mindset and solve people's problems that way. Because if you see the way something is done today, you can question why. And I think asking why is also another important way to get to how you personally feel and how other people feel, how others feel. And then you can actually get to the root of it. And to your example, Pallavi, around why do I want to become a product manager? Is it because I want to earn more? Is it because I want to work with engineers? Is it because I want to talk to customers? Is it because I want to work at a fancy company? And there are different ways to solve that problem for yourself. So when you're intentional and self-aware about that, I think that can actually get you to your goal besides just like going after something. So over to you, Cinneah, and I'll ask you this question before we take some questions from the audience. And again, if you have questions, feel free to put it in the chat, and then we'll sort of like get to that. What would you say is your strategy for developing like a strong product mindset?
Yeah, I would say for me, it always started with following my curiosity. And I think that is kind of like an underlying thread that we've really been hinting at throughout this entire conversation. I think hearing from Pallavi and just hearing how really her curiosity is what led her through multiple internships and then eventually into Microsoft. For me, my curiosity just led me to network with a bunch of people. I mean, folks that have been following me for a while know that I didn't know anything about product management before I became a product analyst. It wasn't as fully fleshed a function as it is today. When I was 26, it was like 2016, 2017 that I was looking for full-time opportunities, but I knew that I had a curiosity. I wanted to wear a lot of different hats. I didn't see myself as just a marketer or just a salesperson or just a tech person. So I let that curiosity of, hey, I really feel like there are lots of things that I'm good at that I really feel like I could excel at, guide me. And I really started talking to people. And that is something that I would highly recommend for everyone on this call. Many of you who are asking the question of, is product viable for me? Can I go into product? I will say that you shouldn't only be talking to the 3 product managers you see on the screen, that you should be making a commitment to get to know folks who operate in a product function in your day-to-day life, whether they work at your current company, whether they work in your industry, or whether they have made a similar transition as you. That is how I landed in product. That's how I started developing a product mindset. Was I started having conversations with people in all different types of job functions and really realized that I felt I had similar values and I enjoyed what I was learning about mostly when I talked to people who worked in product, right? So I didn't necessarily go in thinking I'm going to be a product manager. I went in thinking, these are the companies I find really interesting. I want to learn more about their products. I want to learn how their organizations are set up. I want to learn, okay, I want to be able to know what is the difference between what the consumer side of the business does versus the commercial, right? Like those were the conversations that I was having. And I was really just led to an opportunity in product and was then really fortunate to have strong leaders who helped me develop those product skills that everyone can be taught, right? Everybody can be taught to write to write a PRD, to write user stories. Like none of those things are things that you're born with and are innate. Like we were all taught at one point how to do those things. But I think that curiosity and being that person who's always asking why, being that person who's always putting yourself in the voice of the customer, being that person, even when you're in that product job, to say, have we thought about this? Or what are going to be the downstream impacts if we make this change or another? Or when you're working with, stakeholders on other teams who aren't as motivated by you to get a product done or get a release or get a feature release, not being afraid to ask them the questions, well, what if this doesn't work, right? What are going to be the impacts if one thing happens over another? I think that curiosity is really what helps me drive a strong product mindset. And I think what continues to push me forward is wanting to just continue to solve more problems. So I would say for someone who's out there who is trying to develop that product mindset, I highly recommend you to just start talking to more product managers, really starting to build that network. And then also not being afraid to read and to ask questions of why, right? Products that you use every day, whether they're technical, whether they are physical, or whether they're just things that exist in your community, asking why. Like, why was it built this way? Why do we think that the product managers of those companies built it that way? Why do you think that this is a product that makes so much money for XYZ, right? Why do you think, all of these things? I think just starting to put yourself in that mindset is also how you can start to build a strong product mindset.
Awesome. I love that. I like the curiosity and talking to as many people. I think Pallavi also mentioned that when she wanted to break into VC, like trying to figure it out, like, hey, you only have this much time, and being very intentional about running those experiments. So I think curiosity, paired with your ability to reach out to people and have those conversations, because you can learn a lot by speaking to people's, because I'll use like a separate example of like investment banking. I don't know if people are in investment banking here, but investment banking, obviously, investment bankers make so much money. But if you speak to a lot of investment bankers, they do not like their jobs and they work crazy hours. So, some people who I know, I have some friends who are investment bankers, and they'll tell me, "Hey, I just went into this role because I wanted money and didn't realize how much work it was." But then if you took like a product mindset to realize that like, hey, this is all the things that you're gonna do. You're gonna work 18-hour weeks, 18-hour days, long weeks, not that much vacation. So you then weigh it with like, okay, you thought you were going to make this much money, but you wouldn't have time to enjoy it. And then you can make that decision. You can still decide to be an investment banker. And like if your goal is to just, hey, do you know what, you want to do it for a period of time, save up and whatever your goals are. But having access to all the information can help you make a better informed decision. I think that that is sort of like um, the foundations of what we're talking about with product mindset. So there are a couple questions in here, and I want to pick one because I know we've answered some. I know Timmy, you asked the first question again. Thank you, Aaron. Can you share a specific example of how applying a product mindset led to a successful outcome in your career? I think we talked about that. Pallavi gave the example of she worked for a nonprofit first in education. Oh, she liked that, and then she used that to transition. Um, Janae asked another question. Okay, sounds like a research skill, maybe some interviewing, knowing how to collect and evaluate feedback. When we talk about product mindset, I do get where Janae is it? I hope I'm saying it right. Janae? Is it
Janae.
Janae? There we go. Janae. But would you say in order to build a strong product mindset, you need to have like a strong research skill or research background or interviewing background? Anything to add, Paul, if you're senior, would like to jump on that one.
I think I would say it really just builds off of what Cinneah was saying. I was nodding my head very vigorously because I think the follow your curiosity is really the key of it. And I think there are tactical skills you can learn when it comes to user research. And I think particularly if you've worked in product management on small teams where maybe you don't have a dedicated user research resource, you are that person. But I really think at the heart of it, it's the stuff that's been said. It's like you care about your users, you want to make their lives better, and you're asking them why and really trying to get to the core of what is the problem that they have, why do they have it, so that you can really critically evaluate the ways that you might be able to solve their problem. So I definitely think there is a bit of a user research component, you could call it, and really understanding the user. But I honestly think if you continuously ask why, and people always say ask why 5 times for you to really get to the core of any problem, I think that's really the skill or the tool you need in order to do the user research to have a product mindset.
Nice.
I totally agree. And it can be qualitative research, right? Say you work for a nonprofit and your team is trying to figure out, well, why are we not getting so many applicants for a fellowship program, right? And maybe you do a little bit of investigating where you then find out, oh, there was something broken on our application form, or some of these questions are a little too long and our applicants don't really know how to respond to them. That's why people are dropping off and not finishing the application. That's applying a product mindset, right? Asking the questions of why, and then investigating, how is this impacting that customer or that user, or in this case, that applicant. And as a result, making some changes to driving value by meaning, well, now we have more applicants coming through our form. Our team is now happier because we have more applicants in our pipeline. We're able to now give this fellowship to a really qualified candidate. That's really that's a totally hypothetical. I just made that up like off the top of my dome. But I just kind of want everyone to see, like, to the point that we've been making this whole night, is that everyone can be adopting a product mindset. And I would argue it's going to make you stronger and better in any role that you have, right? If you're in a role right now where you're just like, we don't really have goals. I don't really know what my goals are for my team. Because I know I ask people a lot when I'm trying to update their resumes. I want you to now start thinking about, okay, where are some opportunities that might exist, maybe in my day-to-day work, maybe in some of the work that I'm responsible for producing. Are there ways that I can make it better? And is there a way that I could start just understanding those people on the other side that utilize the work that I deliver to just better understand, how can we make this better?
Yeah, I love that. Like, how can we make this better? And also chime in on some of the things that you said. Like, research is a lot of listening. Well, there's also asking the right questions, but it's mostly just like listening to people when they just talk to you and tell you their problems. And we already do that for free with our friends and family. Like, so it's all about harnessing that skill and then using that. Also, first of all, listen to yourself as it relates to even your career, what you want to do with your career, and then listen to others who are in the career path that you're in. And that can also help guide you towards like the right approach. Betty also asked another question around this is to Pallavi specifically. Does your product mindset differ from company to company? So think about when you're in Microsoft versus when you're at Duolingo versus when you're in VC. How does that product mindset change?
Yeah, I think fundamentally the skills that we've been talking about and the techniques we've talked about stay the same or have stayed the same in my experience anywhere that I've gone. I think one thing that has differed, kind of to your point around the way you solve problems for your dad might be different than how you approach it for your mom, which 100% the same with my parents too, is really the level of granularity of the customer and how you understand them. And what I mean by that is when you think about a product like Excel, Microsoft Excel, spreadsheets, so many people use spreadsheets for so many different reasons. There's, the very extreme end of investment bankers building financial models to like, people keeping a log of their own personal finances that is much more simple. Or I've seen people, writing resumes in Excel. People do all sorts of things, right? So it's a very large range of users. And when you compare that to the English test I was working at Duolingo, the profile of our users, our customers, our learners is very similar, right? These are people in predominantly non-English speaking countries that are looking to go and study in an English speaking country. So they're probably in about that like 18 to 24 age range where they're trying to take this test in order to go and study abroad. And so it's a much more concentrated customer profile. And I think in some ways that makes it a little bit easier to like really empathize and really understand because you're focused on one group of learners as opposed to trying to segment the market of Excel users. There's just so many different use cases. I would say at a lot of smaller companies, you tend to have slightly more concentrated or clearer customer profiles. But at the end of the day, the questions that you're asking, the way that you're trying to listen, as Sefunmi was saying, ask why multiple times, get to the heart of their problem. I think all of those things still stay the same and have been consistent across my product experiences.
Awesome, good. I can also see some folks also saying they also use the 5 why strategy in their companies, and it's great because yeah, it's absolutely like amazing. It does wonders. Again, even if it also works in relationships as well. When you just ask why multiple times, because again, you get to the heart of what it is that you're trying to do. Another question. Let's talk about like innovation. So you're working at a company, how can you use a product mindset to, and if you have like tactical examples to innovate? I know, like Cinneah mentioned one, if you're working on a nonprofit, how can you find ways to get more people to apply? Again, just made it up on the spot, which is very valuable. Do you have any other examples for people in their organization to leverage that product mindset? And again, we've already said a lot of the answers already, but just to reiterate and sort of like further drive that point home of like how can you actually find ways to innovate by leveraging that product mindset and some of the skills we've talked about again, caring, listening, iterating, experimenting, problem solving, and just generally driving those curiosities towards like actually solving a problem. Cinneah, would you like to start us off, and then Pallavi, you can continue.
Sure. Yeah. I can just give one example, which is doing what you can to talk to your customers. So no matter what your organization is, what do you guys have within your budget, within your willpower? It doesn't have to be expensive, but what can you start to do to really get that direct feedback from your customers? Can you send out a survey through email? Can you invite a select sample set of customers to participate maybe in a user interview or invite them to lunch in the office and really just get their feedback, right? I think especially for anyone who also runs a small business and is an entrepreneur, a lot of us do not do this enough, right? Do not actually take the time to listen to our customers enough and really understand why, really understand, are the products and services that I'm currently delivering providing enough value? And especially when you're a small business owner or entrepreneur, I'll say sometimes you might know that is shifting when you're not making the same amount of revenue that you were making before, when it's harder to acquire customers, or when, just simply things aren't selling as well as they did before. That might mean that what people are valuing is no longer what you're company is offering. So I think where possible, doing a survey, doing a poll, doing some user research is a great way to start gathering customer insights to innovate.
Nice. That's a wonderful one. Pallavi, what about you?
Yeah, I think speaking to customers and getting feedback in any way possible, I think is exactly what I would have said as well. I think the other piece, and I think this applies a bit more in product, and I think there's ways to experiment even outside of the function, but it really is like, how can you test things in a lightweight way before you go and commit to like building out the whole thing? And so, one thing that we were considering, for example, at Duolingo was people who are taking these tests, they probably have a community of other friends who also want to go and study abroad. And so maybe there's an opportunity for some sort of referral program, as an example. And I think referral programs are something not just product managers might do, could be something that folks are doing at small businesses that they run or in other functions that they work in. And so for us, it's, do we want to go and do all the engineering work to build out this entire back end of a referral system? Or is there a lightweight way where maybe someone is just sending a survey, or it's just in a box where they enter some emails? It doesn't necessarily work in the back end, but it gives us a chance to just see, are people using this functionality before we go and build it out? So it's like, once you understand what it is your customer is asking for, what they need, what they want, before you go and build it fully, what is the lightweight way that you can test it? And again, I think that applies back to the career decisions we've talked about, or even in other functions. How can you test things before you go and put all the effort in to really validate that what you're doing and the path you're going down is the right one?
Nice. I absolutely love that. And I think just to add on, so for example, let's say you're working in sales, right? You're talking to customers or prospective customers, and you're not closing any deals. And you're not closing any deals because they're saying, oh, the product doesn't do this, the product doesn't do this, or this is what they want. And you can take that and like go back to your team and be like, hey, I'm not closing, I didn't meet my quota, I'm not closing any deals. But if you apply a product mindset to that approach, you can just say, hey, look, I compiled the last 50 calls that we did. Here's the trend that I saw, and here's what our product is lacking, right? That then tells the company that, hey, look, you're looking at ways, you're even solving your own problems. Like, hey, look, you're not closing deals. The reason why you're not closing deals, sure, money might be a problem. They don't want to pay, but they just mentioned that they want to pay, they don't want to pay for X product, but they will pay for Y product or X plus Y. So that's sort of like another way for you to be able to put yourself in positions where you're building a product mindset in the current role that you're in. Again, you might not even be interested in product management. You might be a great salesperson, but when you have a product mindset, it can actually do wonders for you. Similarly, customer support or customer success, and if you're constantly hearing customer complaints, and naturally we're trained to just be like, I'm sorry, I'll tell the product team and whatnot. You can also find workarounds, or even just amplify their voices a little bit more to be able to let them know that, like, hey, this is like a challenging customer problem. You can plot graphs and say, hey, you also do some quantitative reports back to the upper management and say, hey, this is the trends that you've been seeing. Nobody, like, these are the challenges that customers are facing, and this is why people are upset, or this is why our ratings are low. And then again, you're building that product mindset, and you're also talking to the decision makers. So, which is why there's this emphasis on the mindset over just like the role, because you can actually just grow your career and advance your career even if you're still doing the same thing. We've had several examples of people who have gotten promotions in their current role because they've come through like our program, because now they're now supercharged with like the product mindset, and they're using it for sales, for customer success, for account management, and whatnot. So just to just like feed off of some of the questions. Again, we have about 15 minutes left. So again, if you have some questions, put them in the chat. I still have some more questions for Cinneah and Pallavi. Priya just asked one question, which is nice. I like this one. As a PM, how do you maintain a balance between creative problem solving while pushing the limits of domain expertise or domain experts to achieve sustainable value creation? Who would like to take that one? I think this is like a very meaty question. So who might be
You
interested in
start.
just like
You like the question, so you start.
also, yeah, I just felt like I've been talking, so I wanted to give somebody else a chance.
No, it's fine.
While pushing the limits of so that's a wonderful question. I think Successful product managers have some sense of domain knowledge in whatever area. So, for example, senior like foundation knowledge of payments, right? So, let's say you've been working as a banker for many years, and then you understand payments, you understand how money is being moved, and now you transition some of those skill sets into an official product role. So that gives you like an unfair advantage. Or let's even just say agriculture, for example, like maybe you grow up at a farm, and then there's like this like tech-enabled or tech solution for farmers. That domain expertise, you think about that as the foundational knowledge, right? So I think that helps you build what we call product sense. So this is different from product mindset. This is just product sense because you know that area so well and you've built that empathy with them. Right? Nobody knows you like you. Like, for example, I'm an immigrant. I grew up around Nigeria, as I grew up in Nigeria. So if there's anything relating to like Nigerians, I have that context already, and no one can take that from me. And then that then helps you actually go into some of the structural layers of problem solving and creating value. Because creating value is ultimately what you want to be able to like deliver to the end customers. So if you build that foundation of domain expertise, and in whatever job you get as a product manager, you have to actually ramp up the domain expertise. So if you join Netflix versus if you join Uber, like Netflix again, streaming, you need to understand streaming, how streaming works, how people make decisions on streaming versus Uber is like ride sharing. Again, I know I'm jumping around a lot of like different examples, but just to show you how domain is very important and it's still going to serve as the foundational layer. And then you build up on top of that how to solve problems, how customers think about that specific domain. You can build your product sense by spending a lot of time understanding the domain, and then that's how you eventually create value. So it's not really balance versus it's like a formula. They sort of like build on top of each other. So, and you need all of them to be able to survive and be like a holistic product manager. You can't just be like, okay, I'm a problem solver without understanding the domain, without understanding the customers, and without understanding what the customers value. Because ultimately, value creation happens when customers are fulfilled, customers are happy, or business makes money, more money, right? And there's always that great intersection where customers are happy giving the company money and the company is happy taking it. So value creation is that huge intersection. You can't create value when one side is unhappy with the other. And then you need, again, that domain expertise, you need creative problem solving to make sure that the users are happy enough to give off this much money and the company is happy enough with that money so like revenue can keep moving forward. Hopefully that answers the question, Priyan. If anyone else wants to chime in, Pallavi, Cinneah.
I think you did a great job.
Yeah, no, I think you did a great job. I think one thing I was going to say, and I don't know whether this will directly answer the question, but it's the thought that came to mind when I read it, is around, particularly in the product role, leveraging the different people and the different teams that you'll work with to come up with creative solutions. Because I think what often happens is if you're looking at a problem, I think this is true in any function, in any problem, even in personal lives, when you're really close to a problem and you've looked at it for a very long time, I think sometimes you start to limit the solution set that you see. Whereas when you're able to get a fresh perspective or someone who maybe has a different background from you, they might be able to pitch creative solutions. And even if they don't understand fully the domain expertise and kind of the limitations, they might still be able to start get you thinking in very creative ways. And so I think in times where maybe I've had to work on really challenging product features or launches, I think those are instances where I've really relied on the engineers and the designers that I work with so that we can kind of push each other to think more creatively. And obviously we're all coming at it with different understandings of what are the design limitations, what are the engineering limitations, what are the product or human capital limitations. But at least when you put us all together in a room and we can really riff off of each other, I think it helps drive our problem solving forward and makes it more creative. So I think, again, I don't know if that'll directly answer the question, but I think something to keep in mind is like, how can you leverage with the range of expertise of the folks that you're surrounded by, even if you're not in product, different teams, different coworkers that you're working with, how can you work together to really push your creative thinking?
Awesome. Great answer. And again, you have people that you collaborate with. So I think that's also important that they're a resource to leverage them. We can take one more question and have one question for the group. So I guess two more questions. But I know Agnes had a question around how to make product management more green and sustainability. I don't think that's our expertise, so I don't think I can talk about that question yet. But feel free to send me an email. I'm happy to chime in and find an answer for you. There's also a question around approaching product managers to glean knowledge. We can talk about that towards the end, but there's a question question that I think might be interesting, Jade starters. What is the greatest learning curve when transitioning into product management? Anything technical you highly suggest learning beforehand? I love this question, and I'm curious if Cinneah, Pallavi, you want to answer this quickly. I can also chime on this later on, and then we can, and I'll ask you my final question before we round up.
Yeah, I'll kick things off. I think one very underestimated element of being a product manager that I don't think that many people outside of the function really understand is one of the biggest things that you will have to do as a successful product manager is influence without authority. And I would say for me, that was one of the biggest learning curves to understand, right? Because so much of it is learning relationships, learning people, and then also understanding your value within that chain. And every organization is very different and may, you may have different, how do I say this like in a PC way? Depending on the organization that you're in, right? Product may be a higher value or not, right? Like now I'll be really interested to also hear what my other co-speakers think because, they've worked for more technical firms, right? Software development firms, where I do think the role of product is very different than in some of the companies that I've worked that are banks, right? So product may not be, kind of seen in the same lights as a technical software development company. So I would say for me, one of the greatest learning curves was learning how to influence without authority. And what that really means is when you were trying to drive a feature to be commercialized, or when you were working on a product, as the product owner, as the product manager, you are the owner of that product, right? You want to see that product be successful and go from idea to concept to market. But you may have to work with other cross-functional stakeholders, other teams, like have been mentioned already, that may not be working on the same product at the same time, right? They may be motivated by other things happening at different times, right? They may also have other dependencies. So learning how to, give and take, learning how to understand what people are telling you and make decisions based off that. And really just understanding that product is so relational. And that's why I even encourage you now to start building those relationships, because so much of the function is about relationship management. It's less even about knowing how to do some of these technical skills and really just learning how to bring people together and drive processes forward. So that's what I would jump in to say first, but I would love to hear what you guys think.
Valerie, over to you. That's such a great answer, by the way. I think that was pretty much my answer.
No, I feel exactly the same. I think influencing without authority is hands down like the thing that makes product so challenging, because you are the owner of the product, you are the person driving all these things forward, but oftentimes, especially when the organization functionally is split into different sections, like you don't have real authority over the people that you're working with. And so it is like, how do you get good at gathering information from everyone, making everyone feel heard, and then finding a way to sort of like push what's in the best interest of the product forward and kind of getting everyone on that path. So I 100% agree. I think to your point, I think the technical things you can kind of learn later, but I do think that is probably the hardest challenge with product management, even at
Yeah.
first, I think value product.
Yeah, well said. And it's so interesting because I read a report that interviewed 1,000 experienced PMs. What are the top PM skills? And number one was communication. Like if you think about it, number one was communication. Technical is not even up. This is like not even top five. It's like number seven or something like that in terms of the top skill. So it just emphasizes how great of a communicator you need to be to succeed in a product management role. And it's not just like communicating, communicating is also asking the right questions. It's also like, managing all the different personalities and different challenges and different stakeholders that you find. So, really working on that communication. The first step is even speaking to as many product managers as you can to even understand like what they do essentially. I know we only have 3 minutes, and again, so thank you so much for everyone who's stopping by. I know they asked recommendations, book recommendations. For everyone who attended, I would share an ebook, the How to Product ebook that I've written, to help. It tells you 25 different stories on how to transition into product manager of the massive industry. So I'll send that over to folks who attended the session. So thank you so much for that. In the 3 minutes that we have, I wanted to just, ask just one last question. I know we talked about a lot of the skills. Again, we talked about empathy, curiosity, asking questions, listening. What resource or tools? I know this is like a bit of like, because those are just vague skills that I think everyone can identify that they have. What resource or tools would you recommend for individuals who want to further develop their mindset? And then once you answer that, I'll just close us off and then we'll take it from there. Pallavi, would you like to start?
Yep, I'm happy to. So tools and resources kind of in developing that product mindset. I'm trying to think of ones that would be more holistic and not just to the product management function. I will say one resource that I really appreciate, if folks haven't already seen, is Lenny's newsletter. Lenny has had kind of this infamous product career. But it's not just speaking from his experiences. He tends to interview a lot of different product managers. And again, even if you're not in the product function, hearing the way that they approach understanding their customers, experimentation, building out new features, like how do they think about whether they're building the right things, how are they measuring success? I think all of those are things that you can apply, as we've talked about in this discussion, to your personal life or to other functional roles that you're in. So I definitely think that's probably one of the most interesting resources that I still sort of keep in touch with, despite being on pause in my product career right now.
Awesome. And thank you so much, Courtney, for dropping the newsletter. Cinneah, what about you?
I feel like that's kind of a hard question for the same reasons that Pallavi mentioned. It's hard to just offer, tools or resources that are truly agnostic. And I know everyone here comes from different backgrounds. So I'm just going to plug Co.Lab. And one of the reasons why I'm really excited to partner with the team at Co.Lab and why we're doing this talk, and this is just the first of many, is because I know that there are many people in this community that may be learning about product management for the very first time. And I know how much of a black box product is, even as someone who is in product, right? The industry is constantly evolving, and we don't always have folks in your community or in your network who can help you navigate the industry. It all kind of starts to feel like alphabet soup. And I will say that even as a PM with 5+ years experience. So what I really appreciate about what Co.Lab does is that you have an opportunity to get real hands-on experience. And I definitely want to shout out the Sprint program. And I've actually referred a couple people in the finance community to the Sprint program because I think a lot of people here may just need an opportunity to just kind of see, is product even something that I would be interested in, right? Now you've heard a lot of different perspectives from those of us here on this panel. And I encourage you, as we've all said, to go out and then talk to more product managers, maybe even starting with some at your company. But I think the Co.Lab Sprint would be a really great opportunity if you're kind of someone who's like, this sounds a little interesting. I would like to just get some hands-on experience before I, to a point that was made earlier, before I invest and put all this time, energy, and resources into trying to become a product manager. Why don't I just try to get some hands-on experience with other professionals in a safe environment and trying to test out these concepts in real time. So I would highly recommend that. And I know Sefunmi, you're going to send more information to folks after this. That is something I'm definitely going to encourage more folks to do. I think especially in the job market that we're in, I will say it is brutal out here, even for folks who have product experience. And I don't want to set up anyone for failure who are trying to transition. So I say, try to get some practice through a sprint program through Co.Lab by speaking to other PMs, seeing if there are opportunities at your current company where you might be able to stretch, shadow, and just learn what PMs are doing, even in your industry and in your realm, before you make that jump. So that's what I would really suggest if you are leaving this conversation feeling like, okay, I want to do more, I'm ready for more. That would be my suggestion.
Thank you so much, Cinneah. I really appreciate it. I wasn't expecting that, so I appreciate it. And yeah, I don't want to. I'll definitely share more information about Co.Lab after, because yeah, we do have a program to help you just like step into the role to see if it's for you. And thankfully, we're working with Flynanced to be able to get like a cool discount for the community. So we'll send more information about that after. I would just like to use this time to just thank our amazing speakers and everyone else. Please, if you could just join me to just like thank them and just like either react to just put like a clapping emoji. So I think that they were amazing to be able to like dedicate their time and their knowledge to you all. I can see some of the reactions like headed up, coming up. So thank you so much for your time. Again, I'll send information about the book, about the Co.Lab program, about everything else that you might want. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I can just drop my LinkedIn in the chat before it's done. Feel free to connect with me there. But yeah, I'll send over an email with the recording, with the book, and more information about the Co.Lab program. Maybe I'll see some of you in there. And feel free to also connect with Pallavi and Cinneah. I also dropped their LinkedIn in the thread that we have going on. I can see that some folks already posted their intros there, which is exciting. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I'll just drop that post one more time. And to our wonderful speakers, again, thank you so much, Pallavi. Thank you so much, Cinneah. And I will see you all soon and shortly. And everyone, I hope you all have a great rest of your night. Bye.